we have the phenomenal Carrie Drier. She is absolutely fabulous, a short-term rental expert, hospitality expert, actually, even more so, which I'm so excited to dive into. But like, I'm just so excited that you're here because you have such just like humble story. Like, honestly, like, and I love that you were never involved in any of this like social media stuff or anything like that beforehand, which I'm so excited to get into as well. But welcome, Carrie, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. It's been fun to get to know you. I'm so glad that I did start getting involved in the social media aspect because there is so much good and we got to meet through that. So people making connections and saying that we had to meet, and I understand why once we met. It makes a lot of sense.
I know. I love it. Oh my gosh. So Carrie, for anyone who's listening, before the real estate investing, before the hospitality, all of that, who was Carrie?
Yeah. So I really was such a determined kid. I really wanted to excel at school. I had a lot of challenges. I know now that I had ADHD, didn't know that in the past. I really had to work extra hard to get through school in the traditional way. It was really important to me to go to college. I was like the president, which makes sense now looking back, like the president of all the clubs and, and wanting to get all the internships and get the, good marketing job. And, so that's kind of where I started, and thought that I was just going to keep continuing as most do, I think, before they get into real estate, climbing the corporate ladder and making sure I keep increasing my salary and my responsibilities. So that's kind of where I was before I started in the real estate realm. And honestly, that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. I always tell people that I started my real estate journey in 2015 when we bought our first investment property. But when you invited me to be on your Wanderlust Wealth Academy and you were asking me more questions, I was like, actually, my journey started before that.
Yeah.
And so I really changed my perspective on that. And I think it's really important for people to hear about that. So I was going to talk a little bit more about, how we got into real estate.
Yeah. How did you get started? Because so many people are kind of, especially people who are listening to this, like they're at that point where they really want to get started. They know they've been listening maybe to some podcasts here and there, or maybe they've just like stumbled upon this podcast and they're like, real estate investing. Like, I know I want to do it, but people are telling me that it may not be the right time. And I don't know about money. Like maybe I have a little bit of credit card debt. Maybe I have a little bit of money saved up. I just don't really know what to do with it. How did you get started?
Yeah. So we actually, and this is something that I want to talk about because I think there's a lot of stigma about getting help when you're starting out. And when my husband and I at the time were not married, but we knew that we wanted to start a family together and we wanted to buy a primary house. And his parents did this really amazing thing for him when he was younger. They started like an investment fund for him, and they would put all of his birthday money, all of his Christmas money. I don't really know all of the details to it, but it grew enough that when he was ready to buy his first house, he was able to use that for his down payment. So it really helped us launch our real estate career because we were able to have enough money to put a pretty good down payment on our house. And then when we were ready to sell that, we were able to take any equity that we got into the house and that down payment to continue on our journey.
I love that. Okay, so a few things that I want to touch here is like, yeah, there are different, like literally, I don't know if it's necessarily the government or who does it because I haven't really honestly looked into it too much because I'm not ready to have babies yet. But there are different investment opportunities for people who are having kids that you can literally put like $100, $200 a month in it. And then by the time they're 18, there's already like a good few $100,000 in the account, which I think is incredible.
It's so amazing because even with my kid, he is obsessed with putting all the money into a bank account so he can see it. We need to think about, putting it into something that makes him some money. But I think you're never going to remember what you bought with the Christmas money from your grandma when you're 5. And I just think it's such a good gift to really set you up when you are responsible enough to take that money and do something that could really significantly change your life. So I am really grateful for that. And when my husband and I met and started dating, he was very financially responsible. He worked his way through college, did not have any debt, and I had tons of college debt and tons of credit card debt. So I think that was what we were talking about before we hit record, is like one of the most important things, honestly, that I could do for me is really pick the right life partner. I just think that honestly, everything stems back to that. When it comes to making good decisions, and also just support and anything. I mean, being an entrepreneur is not easy. Having that right person that you can trust and also help you grow. And, a lot of the things that you're doing for the women in your academy, like he did for me, like I just didn't know. I didn't have a good relationship with money. So I still am a spender.
I am too. Like I'm still very much a spender, but it's like very conscious spending. And I'm a big fan of making more, right? Like finding ways to make more, take out the stuff that you really don't need, right? But don't stop. Like you really do only have one life. So spend, but also invest, right?
Yeah, and I think that we do complement each other in that way. It's like a really nice balance where if it was up to him, he would just Scrooge McDuck and like be in a bathtub full of money. We joke about that, and I would probably spend it all. So it is really a good balance to be like, we want to enjoy. We love travel.
Yeah.
But there's a way to budget for that so that we're not feeling stressed out of like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, let's go travel and spontaneously go do it and spend the money and figure it out later. And that's not good either. So yeah, having that nice balance of, you're right. I mean, why are we doing this? And I think that that's a good reminder of like, okay, you can grind it out and work really hard and save your money. But yes, you don't want to wait. I don't want to wait until I'm 60 or 70 to be able to enjoy that. It's just, I see people at the airport. I'm like, this is a young person's thing. Not that we're old, but I'm like running across the airport and even in travel, like trying to get upstairs and stuff. Or, we go to a lot of water parks. We're in our water park era because we have a 9-year-old, and it's like, man, I know we need to keep our health up, but like, I'm glad we're doing some of this stuff now because we're able-bodied.
Well, that's like I was in Portugal last year. If you don't know, so especially like Lisbon and Porto, they're really, really hilly. So like just walking around town is a workout. And I just remember seeing a bunch of like elderly people, and I'm like, power to them that they're getting out there and traveling. But like, I'm like, honestly, I don't know if at the age of, 70, 80, if that's the kind of trips I want to do, right? Like the experiences are so, and there's crazy stuff that I'm doing that I know that they're not going to be doing.
Oh, no.
Right?
You're going to have a different experience than you are there. Yeah, maybe we need to be in our cruise phase era when we're in our 70s and 80s.
I know. And I feel like also when I get older, I'm going to just like want to have like a lot of land and do some homesteading and have the grandkids over and all of that and still travel and do stuff, but probably in a very different way.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that's good to have that balance, but it is really nice to also have someone, if you didn't grow up with a good relationship with money or no one talked to you about that, to have someone that you trust and love that can help gently guide you that way. So it's really has served me a lot. I don't, not that I don't like to buy nice things, but it's like, I always think about that. Like, do I really need that? Or do I want to save this and go travel or save up for another investment?
Well, I mean, that's why I love house hacking, right? Because so like I kind of was in that dilemma too when I was purchasing a property. I was like looking around and all of my coworkers and all of my friends were buying these 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom single family homes. And they were like, and I was just like, I don't know, this just doesn't feel aligned. Like, yes, there's part of me that wants that, but like with where I am at right now, I'd rather like, live in a duplex or live in something where I can maybe rent out the room every once in a while and get some extra income. And then that gives me more money to travel and go do the things that I actually want to do versus like having this big house with tons of expenses that's not paying for itself.
Totally. And I think you can get there. And then when you do have a family and settle down, you're going to be able to feel comfortable about doing that. Where now's the time to have that flexibility. Even when your kids are young, I mean, we were able to, live in campers and live in a rental and move all around. And we really didn't have like a real stable spot, but it was okay because our kid just wanted to be wherever we were. And now he's in school and we've accumulated more things and it makes it a little bit more challenging to do that. So it's like, do it now while you can continue to build your portfolio, because you do have to be really creative, especially nowadays. You have to be creative on how you're funding things and buying things. And so, yeah, I think it's taking advantage of that and then not seeing what everyone else has as like you don't have that or it's a negative thing, because I think that could push you in the wrong direction. It's like, okay, we're in a little bit of delayed gratification and we've had to deal with that, and now we're, starting to be like, okay, we can maybe get a boat, or things like that. But I turned 40 in a couple of months. So it's like knowing that we don't need all of the things that everyone has right away or trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they say. And and that's important. And I think that's where social media is, both good and bad, because
completely
you can look at it and get off track when you really have to be like, no, that doesn't align with what I want or what I need. And I don't need those things in order to be happy. I'm happy with traveling and with, keep building that long-term wealth.
Completely. And so I kind of want to backtrack just a little bit. I know we were talking about, how there's this kind of stigma around your parents helping you get to where you need to go, which blows my mind, honestly, because I think about, I'm building a lot of what I'm building because I know I want a family in the future and I want to provide for my kids. So why wouldn't I help provide them?
That's what keeps me going. That's my why right now. It's like, I want to be able to set my son up where he can do what he wants to do. I hope he wants to join in what we've got going on, but at least it'll allow him that opportunity to do what he's passionate about because we've set him up for that.
Completely. And so like something I know that I want to do is when my child, whenever I have kids and whenever each child is born, I want to buy an investment property for them and like put them on a 15-year fixed mortgage so that by the time that they turn 18, they've got a fully paid off property. And then that's basically their, college fund if they choose to go to college, or if they want to start a business, or if they want to buy more real estate, like they have that. And they take over, like I would want them to take over management, take over ownership at an early age. So they learn how to be an investor. But it's like, yeah, okay, maybe their friends will tell them, well, yeah, your mom gave you a house. Like, yeah, you bet I did give them a house.
Yeah, no. And I think, I do feel like people put that stigma around it. And I think it is really important for us to be talking about that because people should not be ashamed. And when they do think about their why, and I do feel like a lot of parents or want to, stand to be parents or want to be parents, that is what their why is going to be, just like you're saying. So it does make sense. And so it's like almost like there's stigma, but then that's what most of our whys are geared towards. So, but I think it is a really important part of our story. And I'm so glad that you kind of brought that out of me, because I really would start, okay, in 2015, we bought our first short-term rental. Like that's where I would say my journey started. It's like, no, if we didn't have that help for the down payment, and then when we sold that, we actually did decide to downsize when we moved back to my hometown and bought a house. And then we were able to we put like 40% down on our house. Then we were able to like have a lot lower payments so that we feel comfortable, because we went from a 2 income to 1.
Yeah.
And I could try to be a stay-at-home mom. And so like we really just wanted, again, my husband, grateful for him to push for that, because having that stability from one person really helped allow me to get into this real estate journey for like not the reasons of money. And I know, that's important, but my journey would look so different if it was driven solely on money.
Completely.
I got to do things that I enjoyed and grew my portfolio in ways that fit me.
Yes.
And not making it based on like, what does the spreadsheet say? And granted, we didn't really have a lot of those tools back in 2015 anyway.
Yeah.
We were pulling like hotel data, just based on, what nightly rate. We didn't have AirDNA or any of these things that they have now. But I actually feel really thankful for that, because a lot of my journey was community building. Like even today, I'm at one of my rentals to do the podcast, and my neighbor was outside and was able to chat with him. And that's how we've been able to add to our rentals too. A lot of conversations and talking with people. And So I just love that our journey is a little different because of that. But it is really stressful if we were both entrepreneurs or there was a lot of expectation and stress on me to be a provider. So I am thankful for that. But everyone has a different journey and everyone's different, motivated by different things.
No, I love that. And it's so funny too, because I honestly, truly believe that nowadays there's almost too many tools. So like people get paralyzed and then they're basing everything on the spreadsheet. And as we all know, like real estate is a science and an art, right? Like it is what you're going to put in your spreadsheet is not exactly how it's going to turn out. I literally have a video on YouTube that is like the breakdown of my numbers for my first investment property. And the funny thing is like the overall numbers ended up shaking about right. But like my expenses and my income that I projected were actually pretty different.
Yeah. It's like you can take, I mean, we always say educated guesses, like, and that's again how we balance each other out, because I was much more like, it's going to work out. I'm trusting my gut, the visionary. And then my husband's like, okay, what are the numbers? What do we think the occupancy? What do you think nightly rate? And we live in a very seasonal town. So it makes it a little bit more challenging too, for that. So, but I do think that I do feel like people, like you said, people get caught up. It's like, okay, you can take those things, but also if you're using your gut or like, you have to put that in there too in order to make those decisions, because it could look perfect on paper and then who knows, it might not work out or it might not totally work out on the spreadsheet side, but then you maybe missed out on an opportunity where actually it would have done better.
Completely. Well, and I also love that you said you put 40% down because, obviously when people are getting started, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, do I put a lot down? Do I put less down? A lot of the time I tell people like, if you can get into a property and the numbers work for less down, go for it. But like the benefit of putting more down is your monthly payment is lower, right? So it's like a little less to deal with. And I know for me, like I bought my property with very little down. So I don't have as much equity in the property. So like it's a very long-term play, right? To see some of those bigger benefits that I like, yes, it cash flows, but like I don't know if I've even talked about it on the podcast too much, but like the real value of real estate investing comes from the equity, right? And it's like the more equity you can have in a property, the better off you're going to be. And that's where you're going to really see your like money, like triple, quadruple, whatever.
We've been pretty like traditional in how we invest. We've always at least put 25% down. And same reason, it helps with the monthly payments. And it also is like a good way to force you to save. So if you're putting that money in, for example, when we moved back to my hometown and we put 40% down on our primary here, when we ended up selling that, we had money that we could then go invest. And it's almost like forced us to save that money because we weren't able to spend it on anything else. So sort of, as I said, I mean, not trapped in there, but basically because saving money is one of the hardest things for a down payment. And thankfully also my husband's job gives him yearly bonuses. And that was really a good way because it was hard for us to set aside that money every month to save up. So like we knew that would be dedicated to our next investment property. And we did. That's why if you on my journey, we've done pretty much one a year. And so it's like that grows slowly. But, now when you think about it being slow, and then we're on our 10th season this summer and we have 10 properties. So it all adds up. But I think a lot of times what we're talking about with the internet, sometimes I have to fight that a lot of like, no, I'm doing what's right for me and I don't have to go fast and everyone's journey is different. I don't want to grow with other people's money. It just doesn't fit what we want and what we're looking for. That's not saying that anything's wrong. It just doesn't fit our goals. And I'm happy now, like looking back to be like, okay, we did it the slow way, even though my husband doesn't say it slow. We did it the slow way that fit within what we need and what worked for our family. And now we have this portfolio that allows us to have some economy of scale, hire some people, and be able to be a little bit flexible when we're investing because of the seasonality. We have enough in there that's providing money that we can pull from or do different projects. Or take like an owner's draw from that when we need to.
Oh, 100%. And like social media really is because you always see the bigger people, right? The big flashy people whose numbers are out of control and they have 40, 50, 100 properties, right? I like started off on that journey a little bit as well. And I was like, nope, wait, this is like actually not what I want. Like I literally right now just want real estate to cover my lifestyle. And I was like, wait, it does that. Like
Yes.
I'm good for right now.
I don't need to add complication of
Right.
partners and like paying people out. And I think that is so important. And I don't think necessarily people do it on purpose. And I do think there's a responsibility for the watcher or the viewer to really be like, okay, what are they actually making money or so I think sometimes people put things out there and they're not telling the full story. Again, I don't think that all of it's malicious, but
Right.
I think there is more to every story. And so sometimes people that are growing really fast or using other people's money, they might be working harder for the same amount that I'm getting, but I get to get the whole piece of the pie.
Totally. Yeah. And what I really realized too is most people don't want a huge, giant real estate portfolio. They just want a few properties that gives them some optionality, that allows them to maybe go part-time, maybe quit their job and go do another job that they really like, or be a stay-at-home mom, or whatever that looks like, right? That's truly what most people want. But what you do see, on the internet and all of that is the, big flashy, which I get too, which is super, I don't know. For me, it's like motivational, but it was that catch-22 where I started like seeing myself get into that rat race. And I was like, wait, this is actually not giving me as much freedom. And I want to like tone it down a little and stick with my little portfolio that I got. And this is providing me the amount of freedom that I actually like want.
Yeah. I know. I feel like I am such a competitive person, and that has helped like motivate me and get me to where I am. But yeah, you have to really check in with yourself and really focus back on why you did this and what's important. And I started out doing this because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to stay with my child and be able to bring him along, but also do something that fulfilled me professionally.
Yeah.
I love design. I love customer service. I loved all of that. And so I've had to catch myself multiple times being like, wait a minute. Like last year, I spent way too much time away from my family. And I'm like, and I didn't get to travel and I was miserable. And I had to be like, wait a minute. Okay, let's shave off everything that's not working. And that might look weird for other people or they may judge you. And you have to just be like, you know what? It's my journey. And that's okay if I tried something and either I didn't like it or it didn't work out, and be able to have the courage to let those things go and not worry about the judgment of other people, and just really focusing back on what matters for you and your family and your goals. But it is hard when everyone, with social media, everyone is watching. And so you have to really be like, okay, it doesn't matter. And also one of the skills of an entrepreneur is to be able to pivot and change quickly and make those decisions before you get too deep down into something that is making you miserable.
Completely.
Or not making you money or whatever it may be.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So walk me through your journey of actually like the properties that you have, where you're at today with your portfolio, how you, I know you said you bought one property a year for the last 10 years. Are they all short-term rentals? What does that look like?
Yeah. So our portfolio is all short-term rentals. That's where we started. We haven't done anything different other than we've, renovated a place from the ground up. We've built some rentals. So I don't really know anything different. And I'm kind of glad that I just went down that route and became an expert in that. I think it's a little bit harder to go from short-term rental to long-term because
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. Like making $100 or $200 a month on a property just isn't as appealing to me or flashy. Not that it has to be, but it's like, I think if we would have started that way, we would have had more of a mix. But yeah, it sort of just fell in our lap. The first one, I was, again, trying to be a stay-at-home mom. I always say I was like, I'm a failed stay-at-home mom because that was our goal. We downside, we set ourselves up. And then about 4 months into it, we had this opportunity from a realtor that said, hey, we have this 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in downtown Traverse City. It's going to be a short-term rental. Are you guys interested? And my husband was like, yeah, let's try it and see. We had some extra money because we sold that first house of ours. and we didn't know what we were getting. I literally had no idea. Airbnb was barely known. We actually had an opportunity to buy 2 and we're like, we are going to buy 1 because we don't know what this is going to turn into.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you did that too, because so many people like want to run in and they're like, I want 5 properties. And it's like, buy 1 first and make sure you like it. Right?
Oh my God. That is a huge thing. And it's happening now. I think after COVID, I saw a lot of people running to short-term rentals. And I have a couple good friends that were like, I absolutely thought I was going to love this. And you make it look so fun and easy, but that is your thing. That is not my thing. Mm-hmm. And I want someone to property manage it for me. So yeah, I'm really glad that we went slow because again, I didn't know. It gave me an opportunity to design it. This was a time where I was checking everyone in myself. I was cleaning. I kind of got a really good run at what this looked like. And I really loved it. And wanted to do more. But then again, we had to get creative because we had spent our money. So we ended up selling our primary that we had moved up to Traverse City and taking that money and buying more rentals. So I guess we technically did house hack, which I love that I can put that on my resume. So our second rental was actually duplex. I don't think it was ever, it's a weird one because it's in a old sane asylum.
Oh.
I don't know why they consider it a duplex. Like it never was one unit, but it looks like it could potentially be turned into one. So we ended up living in one side of it and then getting the other one up and running. So that was our second rental and did that for a little bit until we realized, I don't know if you ran into this, I don't want to be this close to my...
See, I'm not there yet, but it's like literally me and my dog, right?
Well, so I think having a baby, I was like, okay, because I would always be so worried, like, we shared a wall. So I had a dog and a baby. And I mean, he learned to walk in this unit. So he's still pretty young. And
totally. See, I like lived in apartment complexes before. And then I lived in a duplex and purchased a duplex. I'm like, I'm doing the duplex. I'm writing that out
until you don't want. So that was, so we had to kind of get a little creative in that. And then we quickly realized, we don't really want to be this close to our guests. And at the time, my kid had a hard time sleeping. So I would just drive around and look at real estate and kind of dream. And I ended up finding, this was when the economy was still not great yet. So, so condos specifically they were pretty cheap. And so I ended up finding a cheap condo. And so we ended up living in that for a primary. So our expenses were really low. Which allowed us to put that other unit up and running and then be able to, again, save up and have that flexibility and money to go towards additional rentals. And again, like I said, our journey includes lots of trailer living and bouncing around. And I think that's needs to be said because I think a lot of people do see you where you are now. And they either don't think about it or they didn't know all of the sacrifices that were
completely
to be put into it. And I think not everyone's willing to do that. And that's fine. Not everyone's willing to, they maybe get a rental or 2 and they're happy and they want to use the money to travel. And our goal was to just keep investing that. We still got to do fun things, but like the majority of it for a while was just, okay, keep putting it back into the business, keep growing. So basically our meat of our portfolio in the first 7 units that we bought were all condos or townhouses that were commercially zoned in our downtown area.
Love. So smart. That is so smart because of regulations.
I know. And I didn't even know at the time, like, honestly, like it was just one of those things where because my husband is pretty conservative, it was like, just felt really good to know that we were in the right zoning. And also just being in downtown, we thought that would help combat the seasonality of things. If people are going to come to town, they're more likely to be coming for business or for a conference or, something in the downtown area.
Okay, so do I have something exciting happening for you? So if you have been trying to get into real estate investing, but you find yourself stuck in analysis paralysis, maybe you just don't know where to start or what your next steps are, this event is going to be for you. Now, I do not do this often, but I am going to be hosting a free, and I mean 100% absolutely free, live masterclass on September 17th 17th on how you, yes, you can get started investing in real estate by the end of 2024. Because y'all, we are already halfway through the year, people, okay? Approaching Q4 at this point, and there is so much time for you to make this real estate investing goal of yours a reality. I also think this is going to be my last free masterclass of the year. So this is going to be the last opportunity that you will have to come and learn from me live and get all of your questions answered by yours truly. Now it is time for you to get into the room with people doing exactly the thing that you want to do. So if you want to come to this completely free live event, DM me the word freedom on Instagram or click the link in the show notes to sign up there. And I will see you there. I'm so freaking stoked. Now let's dive back into the show. Even here in Denver, there's a building called the S-Button. I want to see if I can find the owner's contact information and then interview them. But so if anyone knows, just let me know. But it's like an old short-term rental building. So it's basically it looks like an apartment complex, but it's all units, condo units that I think they've sold, and they're all managed by the Espadin, but it's a short-term rental building. And it's so freaking, and I'm like, that is so smart.
We have a lot of those in Traverse City. And honestly, it almost works better that way. I know for a little bit, they were kind of, the city was sort of mandating that you had a certain amount that were short-term and then a certain amount of units in the building that were permanent residents. And it just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
The unit I'm actually sitting in now, it's a row of 10 townhomes. And through my relationships, we were able to buy 4 in here. And when we had people that were permanently living in here and short-term rentals, it caused so much conflict and frustration from both. So I don't know, I'm still a big advocate, but that happens a lot in our town. It's, you have, a building that is all short-term rental and then they have individual owners. And I do think it's really cool for this area because it also keeps it out of the residential areas. Cause I know that's a big, thing. I know that's in Colorado too. You guys have workforce housing issues and, you are reliant on the service industry. And so are we here in Traverse City.
Yep.
And so it kind of, hopefully that helps keep it in those zoned areas. I mean, we still have some townships that allow for residential short-term rentals, but in my mind, it's nice to have those pre-planned zones for that.
Completely. And so all of your properties too are in one area, right?
So I really focused on getting good at what we do and just duplicating it. It made it really easy. Again, in this building that I'm at, we got one, so we knew the numbers. And then when we were able to buy more, it just made it so much easier to be we know what it's going to make. We know what to do. We know the HOA. And then after the 7, we started to be able to be more creative. So we were able to have that income that was coming in and allow us to say okay, let's try something different. And then that's when we bought an A-frame that was completely run down. And then we were able to buy that in cash though from our rentals and then kind of experiment and have fun. That was the first project where I could really be I don't know if this is going to work out, but I have a gut feeling. It was a little bit outside of our town by 20 minutes. But I could just take a chance on it. And that was really fun for my creativity. It ended up costing way more than thankfully we did that at that time in our journey. And I say this all the time. It's don't skip the experience. And I really feel we learned a lot. And then we're able to, if we would have done that as our first investment property, I probably wouldn't have continued to. I think it would have really stressed our relationship, our money, and all of that. And that's so important. I think this is one of those industries and one of those jobs that even if I'm the main person that's doing it, there's no way my husband can't be involved because we're
completely
finances. I'm involving him in all the things I'm not good at, dealing with the bank stuff and insurance. And so it's you're doing this for your family. You're setting it up for your family. And so you have to be on the same page as much as you can be with your significant other, or it's going to cause a lot of
No, completely. Well, I also love that you just became an expert at one thing, right? You became an expert at short-term rentals. You became an expert at your market. You just dived right in, which is why you were able to find these other deals, like you had all the connections. And I think that's what people don't realize, especially when they're thinking about what market should I go in? It's like, where do you have connections? Where do you know people? Because that's going to make it so much easier for you than just thinking of some random place, right? And like, don't get me wrong, I've done the random place thing. It's fun, but it's also just like so much more work, right? So I have properties up in Virginia. I'd never been to Virginia before. Like neither me and my business partner, we'd never been to Virginia. We just started driving, got to Virginia, made connections there. And that was like how we were able to set up our team. But we were going in totally blind, you know? And it's just so funny too, because even people who are like, a lot of people will come to me and they're like, I want a property in this country and I want a property in this country and in this state and in this state. And it's like, okay, realistically, how much time are you going to spend there? If it's something where it's like, okay, this is a second home, vacation home, 100%. Like I want to buy a property in Italy because I literally plan on spending half of my year in Italy in the future. Like that's just like a part of my dream. But even for me, when I started thinking about like, okay, do I go buy a place in Mexico? Do I go buy a place in wherever? It's like, I could go do that or double down on the markets that I already know super, super well. It's less of a headache. I've got my systems in place. I've got my team in place versus trying to now find something like.
And then taking the money that you're making on your portfolio and rent a place in Mexico.
Yes.
I think we've like gone through that too, where it used to be you go to a place and you're like, we could live here. And then it's into like, okay, we can invest here. Like we always have those conversations, which are so fun to have and just dream. But my husband always reminds me of that. He's like, we could also, if we're just going to come here for a week, just rent a spot and not have. But it is a good motivator. And that is a lot of advice that I give for people that try to invest or want to invest in Traverse City. I used to have my real estate license and I would tell them all the time, okay, do you want to retire here? And they're like, yes. And I said, okay, well, that's a good motivator to place now and then be able to short-term rent it and pay down, either pay it off or pay it down significantly so that when you're ready to retire. So I think, again, that's so smart. Like putting those other things, like don't just do it because everyone's like, oh, it'd be fun to have a place in Italy. If you're like, I actually know that that's a goal that I want to live there. I mean, we've talked about that in Florida. Florida probably isn't the best place to buy a short-term rental, especially Orlando, but we love, my mom's in that area. We love doing all of the things there. Michigan's such a place. We love Florida.
Oh my gosh.
It's cold here and we have direct flights to go there. So it's like, it might not make sense to someone else and maybe the numbers don't work out exactly, but if we know that we're going to spend a significant time there, it makes a difference.
Exactly.
And so that's really important to really drive your own bus and not be too, it's good to be inspired by other people, but not to duplicate what anyone else is doing because you don't know the motivation behind some of those decisions.
And that's the thing. Motivation is so big. That's like whenever, a student comes into my coaching program, I ask, okay, like what's the goal? Is it cash flow? Is it equity? Is it tax benefits? Is it, I just want a vacation home, right? Like you're going to be buying very different properties depending on what your motivation is.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that's just, again, a good check-in and a good reminder. And that's because you can, and even going to the conferences, it's like, oh, I could get into self-storage and I could get a...
Oh my God.
And again, I always remind myself, like, I don't have to do everything I'm good at.
Mm-hmm,
or I think I'm going to be good at. It's like,
or every idea that comes, I know the self-storage one was hard. I was like, do I get into self-storage?
Like, obviously you're listening to the expert is very charismatic and doing an amazing job. And you're like, I'm all pumped up, ready to go. But I do think it's cool though to see, especially the conference that we did together, or we're at together, like people found their purpose there. And that was so cool to watch. Like there was a couple people that had tried short-term rentals, didn't like it, knew that they wanted to be into real estate, and to be able to find that is really cool. So again, I love that for it, but it is hard when you're on your journey and you're like, okay, sometimes I just need to have my blinders on. But then other times it is still fun to keep things exciting. I do keep like to grow and challenge myself. Our next project that we want to do is to build a resort, and we've started that process. And it's challenging to me, and I like that. And I'm going slow and I'm going at my own pace. Again, not giving the experience for that. So it is that fine balance of like continuing to push yourself and to grow and to learn new things. But also, it's important to keep what you're good at too. And that our bread and butter is, condos, townhouses in Traverse City. That's what we know. And so to be able to continue to grow that and then, try something new too.
Totally. And it's like, I always say it's different seasons for different projects, right? So like, for example, right now, I have my small investment portfolio, which I love. I just moved to Colorado, buying another place here. And I'm like, this is my little personal portfolio. But my next season, which will probably come around next year, I'm pretty certain it will because I'm already starting to put it in the works, is I want to get into the commercial space and do boutique hostels, right? And it's just that I wasn't going to start with that. That wasn't going to be property number one. That would have probably wrecked me, right?
Yeah.
And it's
I think it's important to remind, because I do think people, and again, I think it's just our society right now and with social media, it's easy to just try to jump right into that and be like, okay, but I need to be really prepared for that. And if it's something that I want to be long lasting, and I want it to be around for a long time, and again, when it's not just based on quick money, I think it's so important to take those other steps.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to your podcast with Joanna.
Yeah, Joanna.
And I feel like that was the same. It was really like that, it's all these little pieces that happened in her life. And it's you might not know at the time, but all of those add up. And so then when you go to do this, you're like, okay, I can pull from all of these different experiences that I had, because it's going to be challenging and you're going to be put up against, obstacles and things like that. So even just the resilient part of it's going to be important. So any of those negative things that you've been through and been able to get past that will really help. And also, that is the time when you see something that is really successful, like a hostel that is really designed well and that's running really well. It's that person puts so much intention into it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
I am too.
A little hostel.
And I'm excited for your resort as well. But it's so funny because kind of a devil's advocate here, right? Where I look at Heather Blankenship and she jumped right. She had no clue what she was doing, right? And jumped into a giant RV park that she was this 26, 27-year-old and was managing. And it's but I think it's one of those things where at that age, I think too, it's also a lot easier, right? And it's so funny talking to her now because she's experienced so much. And she's like, yeah, those first few years, they were brutal. There were a whole lot of sacrifices and it was brutal. And so it's you kind of just have to think about, where do you want to go? How much comfortability do you want? Also know that you have to push yourself regardless, right? You can't just it's not just la, 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 la the entire time. There are going to be tough moments, but I like the whole walk, crawl, run, just like a baby would, just like we all do with everything. When we're spelling, we learn how to read and write and spell, and then suddenly we're writing huge essays and articles and stuff, but you don't start off writing the article.
Totally. Yeah. And I do. It's I think it's one of those things where, sometimes you do jump into something you don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's okay and it works out and you don't know what you don't know. I feel like that's a lot with people that have kids right back to back. I have one and then I waited a little too long. So the second one, it's okay, I have to be really intentional and I thinking through. But if I just had two, that's what I would know. So I think that, again, there's just different ways to do it. But I think it's really smart to, again, keep what you think and not you can ask for advice, but really stay true to what your timeline is and what you feel comfortable with. But again, having those people inspire you, check in with you, keep pushing you along, because big projects like that too, they take like you said, it takes a lot of grit.
And a lot of money too.
And a lot of money. And I do truly believe, after all the deals that I've done, all the deals that I've lost out on, that everything truly happens for a reason. And even with this resort, it's I can go and beat myself up about, why didn't we move faster? Why did we do this? And it's okay, but now the interest rates for commercial went crazy. That would have doubled, tripled our payment and we wouldn't have been prepared for that. So now when we run our numbers and we do our stuff, I can be better set up for success. So
Yeah.
I just really do believe that, but it is hard sometimes when, people are excited for you and going and you're like, I get it. The good thing is like picking something that you love too. And I think like if you're, for you, the hostel thing, like you love to travel, you've stayed in them, you're gathering that experience, but you know that you love it. And so when things get hard, it's going to keep you pushed through. And I think that's for me too. Like in this development project, if I didn't truly want this to be something that can be there for my son, like he's very excited about it, wants to plan like a frog catching area up in the creek and plan the playground and all this stuff. I probably would have given up on these. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you have to really make sure that you do love it. And, because you're going to be met with a lot of different challenges and, stressor. And I don't think anything in real estate, especially on that level, goes smoothly.
Yeah, I know. Completely. And it's like, you have to have that buffer for sure. But I totally agree with, especially once you start getting into like the bigger deals, like just like, at least for me, and I'm not speaking for everyone, for me, it has to be something that I'm like passionate about. Otherwise, I'm not going to put in the work because it does take a lot of work. A lot of that work feels fun for me, right? When it's something that I'm like, let's go. Like, for example, building the Wonderlust Wealth Academy. Everyone probably sees it as, oh my gosh, this fun little project. I'm like, guys, you do not understand how much work I put behind this. Right?
Any sort of community like that, it's like the building out the course, the selling of the course, the marketing of the course, the execution. It's a lot.
Yeah. And then it's like making sure that all the students are like, there's like customer satisfaction, making sure that everyone's getting what they need. Make it, because I like love helping people so much. So I catch myself giving too much sometimes and having to reel back. And then hiring people on top of that for this whole brand new business that I started with like $100, So it's just
well, the other part that we were talking about before we went live is like also then really taking that, the importance of doing what you're preaching. So like that takes a lot of effort too. And that's what we talked about. It's like, if you are over some of these students, you want to make sure that you're living the life and doing the things that you're guiding and teaching. And that takes a lot of energy and time too.
100%. And luckily I love that. I like that part for me pushes me to keep pushing the boundaries, showing people like there's so much more that you can do and all of that. But yeah, it's like almost that pressure is like, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, are you living out what you're teaching? And
that was the biggest thing, because I have a little mentorship program as well. And a lot of my students have a portfolio already and that have been in it for a while. And a lot of them are hoping to go back to like getting some of their summer back to be with their family and travel and do these things. And so it really had forced me to look and say, am I living my life the way that I wanted to? And I wasn't last year. And so it really helped motivate me to say, no, I want those things too. And again, you're going to fall into those traps. It just happens. And I think what I've had to do is just really watch how I talk to myself. I'm very hard on myself, and to realize that it isn't just like an uphill journey, that it definitely goes up and down, and to just be okay with continuing to check in. And like I said, pivot, let go of things that aren't working for you.
Yeah. Even getting off of social media sometimes.
Gosh, I know. I need to re-limit my usage. Actually, that's one of the things that really worked, because this business, you have to be on your phone all the time to be responsive to guests. And if you have students or whatever, you're on your phone a lot. And so what happens is then you check social media and you check your email and you do all these things. And so what my husband and I did that was so helpful for me is we had each other's passcode for our screen time.
Smart.
It was like honestly disgusting, because I had to pretty much justify if I needed more time of like, hey, I really have to get out of here and talk about something with work. And I went over, and
that is so smart. I freaking
best
love
idea.
that.
We've never had what's happening is I put my own screen time, but I
completely. And you just like go in and I'm like, oh, put the code in, whatever, add 15 minutes.
100%. So, well, that was good. It is hard when you do use social media for work. It adds like a layer of complication, because even talking on stories, as you know, like
Yeah.
can take a lot of time to just.
So I try and pre-record those.
You're so smart.
Yeah. I pre-record that and then I post it all at once.
Yes. That's what I need to get better at, is like getting ahead of the game. I mean, that's what I do in my rentals. It's like, we want to make sure that we're maintaining our rental, that we're deep cleaning, that we're doing all these things so that it can run as smoothly as possible. And I need to apply that to my social media as well.
It's always a learning experience.
Yeah, and I'm new to this. Like, I shared my journey online, but not ever talking face to face. And it was more, a lot of the reason why I even started an Instagram was to promote our community, promote things going on, kind of document some of the progress. But I just started like talking online, being on the camera, like 6 months ago. So I'm new to all of that. But it's been really fun because I love having the time now where I do have help and support, where I can now hopefully inspire and give back and have those communications. And I just didn't have time for that when I was in the throes of building our business. So it's been very fulfilling to me to be able to do these things and help guide people. I mean, you knew when I was talking to the girls in your academy, I was like, I want to hug all of you guys because I just see how much hard work that is going into it. And I just think it's so inspiring that they're working towards it and they have someone that's guiding them. And I don't know, it just continues to inspire me too, because again, I don't feel like I have everything figured out and I'm still like learning. And so I just love like this next generation of people and being able to give them that gift if they want to be able to use investing to get out of their job or to lessen the stress of that or to have some flexibility, especially being a mom. Yeah. It's really challenging. And then for me now to have my property manager have her baby. I mean, I was just at her office and I got to snug on the baby, but she's able to bring her baby along. Yeah. And there's not very many jobs that allow you to do that. And I understand she's on call 24/7 and, you know, but it allows her to bring her kid around. And so I love being able to provide that for someone else now that I'm 10 years into this.
Completely. No, I love that so much, Carrie. And honestly, this has been just such a great and heartfelt chat. But I'm going to ask you the final 3 interview questions that I ask every single person who comes on the show. The first one is, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Yeah. So I feel like today was kind of perfect. I like being able to do a lot of different things. And so like today, for example, I was able to be in the office, you know, kind of solve problems, get people amped up and excited for our season coming up. I had a board meeting call with a newly formed association for short-term rentals in Michigan, which I'm really excited about because we have a bill that's coming out that could potentially affect everyone. So like being able to be really involved in the legislative advocacy side of it. I was able to be on a podcast with you. I have a meeting with a potential project that we get to property manage in a year. I have some personal appointments. I don't know. I just like to be able to have that mix of things. Yeah. Is exciting and having some of these fun things. Like this is really fun mixed with maybe something that I don't necessarily that's like mandatory to do, but mixing those things in. I love connecting with people. I love supporting my community. So as long as I can put some of that into my day, I'm happy.
I love that. Okay. So number 2 is, what is your mantra?
Okay. So my mantra, I know I have like 2 sayings, but a lot of my mantra is like self-talk.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Self-talk has been so huge. It's taken a lot of therapy over the last couple of years and a lot of practice. And I went on, like I talked about briefly, I went down a lot of paths last year that just didn't work out the way that I wanted them to. And so I'm really hard on myself. So I really had to practice just how I speak to myself. And so that's been really helpful. And like, honestly, like deep breaths and things like that. So I kind of include that. But 2 sayings we already touched on is don't skip the experience. Yeah. And that just helps me, that helps remind me that I can make mistakes and all of these things will add up into something that will make me better. And so it helps me be less hard on myself. And the other one I adopted recently for my husband because he goes, for why. And it's kind of a funny way to be like, okay, if I'm excited about something new, I know you're like me. It's like, okay, let's go do this new thing. And it's like, for why? And it's just a funny, cute way to like bring me back down and be like, okay, is this going to add to like what? What is this going to add for? Like, is it going to push us into the right direction, or is it just something fun we want to do? Not everything has to be based on that. It can be just for fun, but that's just like a fun little one that I
I love that, because there are literally, you're probably like me, where it's just like, there's so many ideas, so many things I could start, so many things I could do. And it's just like, this is not getting you closer to your goal. No. Stop it.
Yeah. So, and I think, again, when you're in a relationship with someone else, like, you have to be really careful, because if someone is really excited, you want to make sure that you're not like squandering that or like hurting their feelings, because your significant other could be the person that could hurt you the most because they know you. And so, again, it's just like those fun little ways where it just makes things more lighthearted and have that discussion.
I love that. And okay, so last question, what does wealth mean to you?
Yeah, I think wealth for me is that I can basically do whatever I want.
Yeah. 100%.
I feel like I would love to get to a position where, if I wanted to move forward on our project, like, I would have the money to do it. Ideally, I just love supporting entrepreneurs in my community. So in an ideal world, I would love to have money where I can help other people start their businesses. Like, I just entrepreneurial spirit in our town. And if I were able to be a resource for that. And so that, again, plays into my why of like, if I can get things set up, like, then I can be able to give back and
even more
people and be able to like see their dreams.
I love that.
Forward, which is really fun. So hopefully I'll get there someday.
You will. No, not even. Remember, positive self-talk. You're going to get there. I love that. Well, Carrie, so if anyone wants to reach out to you, maybe wants to learn more about your story, or maybe even get involved in your mentorship if they're looking to scale, how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, so Instagram's the best. I have a couple different accounts. Our Roost North account shows our full portfolio. So if you want to see like the A-frame being totally renovated, or any of our new builds, or our property design, lifestyle shoots, things that we've got going on. And then I started, again, that 6 months ago, started a Carrie Drier, Drier account. And that's more just sharing a lot more of everything that we've got going on, sharing, our future development stuff, personal development, and things like that. So I'm in the direct messaging. I love responding to people. I feel like not enough people reach out. But it's like, I think they would be surprised that people are willing to help. And I love when people share projects that they're working on, or even if they ask me for a quick advice. Like, again, I have that time in my life right now that I'm able to do that. And it's fun for me. So those would be the best places to reach out.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. I know that your story is going to inspire so many. Literally, I'm always just like, just such a good chat with Carrie.
Yes, I know. I'm like, we'll have to do a part 2, especially when we get our hostel and we get our resort.
Oh yeah. And I mean, this podcast is going to be going on for a very long time. I love doing this stuff.
I love it. You're really good at it, and it's been really fun. I need to get all caught up, but everyone I've listened to has been awesome. So good job.
Thank you, girl. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Wonderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you. And don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.